you need to be there like every night or pretty close to every night. You need to be very especially if it's your spot, because a lot of those people.
Hello, and welcome to the Bar Business Podcast, where we help bar owners increase profits, attract loyal guests, and simplify operations so you can avoid burnout and finally enjoy your life outside of your bar. I'm your host, Chris Schneider, the Bar Business Coach. Before we get started, a quick thank you to our sponsors, Spot On, who provide a great modern POS solution for the bar and restaurant industry, and Starfish, who use AI to turn your books into actionable steps to increase profits. So, as I have said many times before on the podcast, nightclubs and bars are a different business. The actions you take are different. The process is different. The clientele is different. The finance and the math is different. How you factor cost, everything about it is different. And the liability, security, the money are all different as well. And so, as I've told you guys before, I am not a nightclub person. I don't know nightclubs. I don't particularly like nightclubs. I don't go to nightclubs. So I figured, what better way, if we want to understand nightclubs, because that's part of the bar industry, then bring somebody in that understands nightclubs. So with that in mind, we have a guest today that doesn't just know nightclubs, but understands the LA nightclub market, which is probably one of the most competitive, difficult club markets on the planet. And so with that said, joining us is Connor Treacy. Connor is a multi-project entrepreneur. He has worked in tech. He's worked in music and entertainment. He's worked in hospitality. And basically anything touching entertainment, nightlife, bars, restaurants, hospitality, he's been involved in one way or in other over the years. Most notably, he was a co-founder and was involved in Off Sunset in West Hollywood, which he was involved in for about 3 years. And currently, he's involved in a company called Dobrik's Pizza in West Hollywood. So, Connor, first of all, thank you so much for being here and your willingness to share about the nightclub industry with the listeners.
How's it going, Chris? That was quite the introduction. I appreciate it.
Well, I always like to make people feel good about themselves, right? But also, I think it's important to really point out here because nightclubs are so different from what bars and restaurants are. And LA is such a different market in and of itself, right? Because you have the craziest people, the well, and some of the richest people, right? You have one of the best nightclub markets, but one of the craziest ones. So along those lines, when we're talking about bars and nightclubs and all that, and LA in particular, so what's a little bit of that difference between bars and nightclubs, and what makes, in particular, the LA market even more different and more interesting, if you will, than the rest of the nightclub scene?
Yeah, so I guess for the first question, the nightclubs in LA, it's very like celebrity driven and like you have to be cool, so it's very hard to open that the right way. And then I would say on top of that, the hard part is once you are hot, how do you stay hot? Because everyone will be your friend while you're hot, but then the second there's like something new that opens up down the street, they're gone, right? So you have to figure out one, how to make it cool in the first place, and then two, how do you maintain that? And then the second question was kind of what's the difference between like a nightclub and a bar?
Mhm.
Yeah, I would say honestly a bar is probably more sustainable. I just feel like a nightclub probably if you get that thing going, it probably just cranks out a lot more cash. But I'm sure there are a ton of bars that make a lot of money too. I personally would rather do a bar next. I feel like it's just a lot easier to maintain and just a lot more like chill and I don't know, less fickle than the nightclub business.
Well, and I think that's true from my understanding of nightclubs, and part of what you just said, I think, is really interesting there because you said, in nightclubs, it's all about being hot and staying hot. So you don't in a normal bar, we'd always think about, okay, build a community of regulars. In a nightclub, you're not really building a community of regulars at any point, are you? You're just trying to stay cool.
Yeah, I mean, I try to be very hands-on. I try to be in the club as much as I can, and like I think when you are like a owner of the club, people if you're in there all the time, they feel more inclined to wanna go as much as possible. So I definitely like tried to be in there as much as I could because I think that element is true. But there's definitely like regulars. I mean, there's people who would go every Friday and Saturday. It's just, yeah, I guess when it's like a bigger, more popular known nightclub, you do get more people from out of the country or whatever, they're on vacation that wanna check it out because they saw so and so leaving it, like, in a paparazzi photo or something like that, right?
And so I imagine because it's all about essentially staying hot and becoming hot, that means that nightclubs are way more, at least it would imply to me that they're way more important on your marketing aspect. Your marketing has to be perfect. You have to be hitting the right people and then convincing those people to come in.
Right.
So you had mentioned earlier, in that build up to starting a club, you have to do a lot to build that buzz to be hot when you open. What does that kind of look like?
So, I can only speak from what I did, which was Off Sunset was kind of like a speakeasy, but, like, also a full-blown nightclub at the same time. It's like a 150 capacity room, and from the outside, it was just all, like, grayish blacks with no signs or anything. So it had, like, a speakeasy vibe, like, if you know, you know, but inside it would get, popping. It was like it was not a bar, it was not a lounge, like, it was a nightclub. And I would say the way that we opened that was really just word of mouth. And we didn't really have, like, an official, like, opening night. We basically would just start it off by saying, "Oh, like, come check it out tonight, like, we're just showing friends and family, we want everyone's opinion," and, like, we kept doing that, like, twice a week until the momentum got there, and I would say after, like, 3 months, there was a buildup, but, like, we were also making sure to text, like, the best people we knew so that people were like, "Oh, yo, like, that Off Sunset place, the crowd's super good," and, like, no one, like, from the regular crowd even knows of it, you know what I mean? It had that that's how we built it out. It wasn't like a giant banner on Sunset Boulevard opening night and
Now,
fireworks everywhere and shit.
and let me ask this because I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this question, but because I know you have a background in the music industry,
Yeah.
when you say text friends and family, it's not like your Uncle Bob,
No.
right? Like you actually knew the celebrities
Yeah.
and your partners knew the celebrities, so you're not texting, what most bar owners would consider friends and family. Your friends are known names that are going to attract paparazzi that are going to attract other people to the bar.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, no, for sure. I mean, I my mom went there once. She brought some of her friends, and they were like, "Oh my god, the drinks here are so expensive." Yeah. But yeah, no, I was 28 when Off Sunset opened, and I started kinda working in nightlife when I was, like, a teenager, like, 19-ish. So and before that, I was, like, promoting at, like, 1 Tower Group, like, all those groups. Then I also was working at Interscope as an A&R and a manager for a few years. So, yeah, definitely, it wasn't just celebrities, you know what I mean? I would say, like, my crowd is, like, a culmination of everyone I came up with.
Mhm.
So there could be people that originally used to go to, like, my house parties when I was, like, in high school, be like, "No, I remember, like, when you did this," and there'll be those people, there'll be people that I worked at Interscope, and then, yeah, sure, there'll also be, like, artists or celebrities or whatever, so I try to make it a vibe where people go there and like, "Yo, there's, like, some cool people in here just in general," like, it's a good networking experience even too or something. That's kinda what I try to go for.
Mhm, and I think there's a lot to be said in the bar business in general, not just nightclubs, but if you get to know the people and you can connect people, you can make
Yeah,
magic, right?
yeah.
But I just wanted to make sure everybody understood that, like, your Rolodex and my Rolodex do not look alike with who we have access to.
I don't
Uh,
I don't know, Chris. I haven't looked through your phone book, so you may have some magic in there.
there's nothing that cool,
Yeah.
I promise you. Um, unless you like bar consultants and people that are nerdy about the bar industry, there's really nothing that cool.
They're celebrities in their own right, you know?
Well, I guess.
Yeah,
That's at least what I tell them when they come on the podcast with me, right?
yeah.
So, one of the things too I noticed in your marketing with Off Sunset that was kinda different to me, but I think makes a lot of sense when you're talking about a nightclub style venue, was you guys had a no cell phone policy.
Yeah, yeah, we put stickers on the front of their phones where the cameras were, so there was no photography was allowed inside the club or videos or anything like that. We kinda just wanted to feel like a fun house party, with
Yeah.
no judgment and just good vibes, you know what I mean? So whoever you were, you felt like you could just kinda have fun, while you're in there.
Well, I think that's kinda interesting because one of the things I've noticed over the years, because when I first bought a bar was 2011 was the first time I owned a place, but I had worked in them way before that. And cell phones have kind of made people stop having as much fun,
Yeah,
right? So the idea that you have a club with a no cell phone policy, I think is pretty cool. Just in
yeah,
that then everybody's a little bit more relaxed. They're not worried about, "Oh my god, this is now going to be on the internet and it's there forever." And to your point, a little bit more back to like house party days,
yeah,
right? When we were all younger and well, a little bit older than you, not a huge amount,
yeah.
but I think I'm older enough that when I was in high school, there weren't camera phones, but when you were in high school, there were.
Yeah, but the quality wasn't that good, Chris, I'm gonna be honest with you. I
Right.
I didn't
But
have an iPhone, put it like that.
well, you still have plausible deniability. I had no evidence at all,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
that
yeah.
helped.
No,
But
fair.
nowadays, right, you do anything, there's evidence. So that no cell phone policy is really interesting.
Yeah,
Now, I want to dive into a couple areas where I know the nightclub business and the bar business differ quite a bit
yeah.
that people don't always think about, or they do think about and probably have some misconceptions. And I'm included in those people that probably have misconceptions. So, one of the things that always stands out to me when we talk nightclubs is people talk a lot about having difficult guests, difficult personalities, right? You have celebrities, they have entourages, they have demands, they have expectations that exceed, some dude going to the bar for a drink after work who doesn't expect to be treated special. These folks do expect to be a little bit special. So, how do you deal with that? How do you deal with all the personalities and just getting everyone to get along and be okay with what you're doing?
It can range, man. It can be simply just a guy I've been friends with or a girl I've been friends with for 5 or 6 years, and their ex shows up, and I'm friends with both of them, and they wanna be at the same table, and I have to just kinda put them on different ends of the table. Same could be for if 2 artists show up and there's the same kinda drama, so it all you're kind of and the crazy thing too is I'm friends with so many people that I don't even know about the internal dramas sometimes, so you kinda just
Right.
gotta go with I try to just stay neutral, and I try to make sure everyone's happy, and I'll just kinda rearrange the room and stuff like that.
For sure. So a lot of it sounds like is accommodating folks, but then you know I'm sure you have at least a couple stories where somebody was just absolutely ridiculous in their requests and how demanding they were, and I'm sure in my I have very little experience being around people that I would call celebrities, but in my limited experience, I know some of them are very particular about how things go on around them. So, how do you have any advice or any insight on like how do you figure these people out and not piss them off? How do you avoid the issues before you just step on someone's toes in that sort of a way?
Yeah, I mean, there can be, like, all sorts of things that happen, like, I even one time was, like, outside of the club, and they're like, "Oh, so and so's the prince of wherever, like, some country," and, like, he's with, like, 6 security guards, and, like, I don't really necessarily know, maybe he is the prince, maybe he isn't, like, it could be true, right? Because it's off Sunset, and so, he could also just be flat out lying to me, I don't really have time to vet it, so we just can't let 6 security guards from outside that aren't with us into off Sunset, but what I did do, in case he was a prince, I was like, "Hey, man, like, you can come in and you can bring 1 guard. That's it." You know? So I try to go on the fly and be fair because you also just don't know who you're talking to, especially in LA,
Right.
right? So you just kinda I just try to be nice and accommodating and fair. You know? So, situations like that could come up, you know?
Well, and that's something that's never occurred to me. I've never had somebody come into one of my bars and claim to be a prince, and
Yeah,
then I had to think of the fact of like, are you a prince or not a prince? Or
yeah.
like, and so did you run into that from time to time where people were just totally full of shit in how they presented themselves?
Yeah, yeah, no, there's also people that are, like, completely full of shit or try to lie, but I feel like I have a pretty good gauge because 'cause I've been around it since I was a teenager, right? So, that was, like, a situation where, like, he coulda fit the bill, so I was like, "You know what? I'd rather let the random guy in with 1 security guard because 'cause I'm like, "Yo, if this guy's paying for 6 security guards, I mean, he has something going on, right?" Like,
Right.
who's gonna just go hire 6 security guards and roll down Sunset Boulevard? Like, you're clearly like so I was like, "Whatever, like, I'll feel it out," but ended up working out, wasn't that bad. Everything ended up okay that night. But yeah, I feel like I'm pretty good at vetting out if someone's, like, full of it or not.
Yeah, and I'm sure that's, takes time more than anything and just running into those situations. Now, in that case, since you were talking about this guy's security guards, I know in nightclubs, your level of security is way different than a bar, right? Because a lot of bars, bar in the middle of nowhere on Saturday night, you don't even have a one security person there because you don't need it.
Yeah.
And I assume you ran quite an extensive security staff.
Yeah, I mean, we were like a 150 capacity venue, so, I mean, we never had anything more than, like, 10 security guards probably, you know what I mean? Something around there, but there's definitely, like, the bigger nightclubs in LA where, they have, like, metal detectors and all that kinda stuff, so, I was in One Oak one time when there was a shooting, so,
Oh, wow.
yeah, 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 when, like, Suge Knight got shot, I was around during that time, so, yeah, I
That
was there.
must have been a crazy experience.
Yeah,
I would not have wanted to own that club when that happened.
yeah,
And so with that and having that additional security and because to me, you go, well, 10 people isn't that much for 150. And I'm thinking that's one security guard per 15 guests. Like that's pretty intense right there.
yeah.
You know, how how did you avoid issues on security? Did you run into a lot of fights and things even with that number of security people in the building?
Oh, yeah. It could be, like, BET weekend, and a huge rapper is in there with his boys, and they just see some guy they don't like, and then all of a sudden there's an altercation in the hallway. There could be someone that's, like, trying to get in at the front and says something to the security guard, and then there's an altercation. So it's kinda you just kinda gotta go with it and handle it as professionally as possible.
And with that higher incidence of security situations in clubs, I'm assuming that comes along with higher liability on like the insurance end, and I'm also assuming that comes along with the fact that you get probably sued more than a bar would get sued.
Yeah, I've never owned a bar, so I don't know, but from what it seems like with all the nightclubs and even restaurants, it seems like it's like a pool for getting sued, you know what I mean? Because there's just so many people and everyone's drinking, and so there's just, like, a lot of variables with it, so I think that just comes with the territory.
Well, and I think I mean I owned multiple bars for probably if I combine it all over a decade, and I never got sued once. Now
Really?
that's probably it. I live in Indiana, right? It's not California. We're not as litigious here.
Yeah,
Right? California has, I believe, more plaintiffs' attorneys than anywhere in the country, so
yeah.
it makes sense that there's more lawsuits there. But I think for a lot of folks that are listening that are, Midwest or the South, they're going like, "Wait, people get sued all the time in LA?" So it's common what you're saying is in LA, it's not that uncommon even as a restaurant to get sued, and as a nightclub, you're definitely getting sued from time to time.
I just went into it, like I was in One Oak when there was a shooting, right? So I was like, anything that happens at Off Sunset, there's been guys or girls before me that have owned a venue that have gone through worse shit than me,
Mhm.
and they made it through. Because I literally was in a venue when there was a shooting, and that didn't happen at Off Sunset, thank God, you know? Well, yeah, so that's the mentality I try to have where I was like, it could be worse.
Well, I guess that's the best mentality to have in that situation.
Yeah,
I don't know what else you could do, right? Because
yeah,
it's if that's just the culture and that's part of that part of the business, then there's no way to avoid it.
yeah.
Now with that, so you have all the security, you have all these lawsuits, you have all this extra headache beyond bars. But you also in exchange for that, I mean, like, you're open what? Probably 3 nights a week, 2 nights a week,
3 nights.
3 nights a week. So you're packing a lot of action into a much smaller space of time. And tell me if I'm wrong on this. I think I saw something that with Off Sunset, the first couple years there, you guys were doing like 4,000,000 in revenue a year.
The first year we did, yeah.
So that's 4,000,000 in revenue on what, 150 nights total,
Yeah, it's like
give
over
or take.
30 or 40K a night or something like that on average.
Yeah. So it's
Which isn't that crazy, by the way.
well, not for an LA nightclub, but
Yeah,
for
no, like, One Oak when I was there was doing over 100K a night on when it was super hot, yeah.
but that is gonna sound crazy to a lot of the folks that are listening that own little bars and they're going, "Wait, I did 30 K last month," you
Oh,
know?
yeah, 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 yeah,
Because
yeah,
smaller bars, you can get to those kind of numbers.
yeah.
Or 30 I mean, 30K in a week for a lot of people is not outside the norm. the idea that you're doing 30K in a day and doing 4 million in a year off just 3 nights a week just shows that level of volume that you're punching through. And the other thing too, I think we should of course mention with that monetary number there is in nightclubs you can charge a lot more than a bar.
Yeah.
And it's like I was looking at the off sunset, the menu that exists there currently, which I know you're no longer involved, but just looking at the current menu, there a bottle of Bacardi for $625 is a hell of a margin.
Yeah. It's not bad, right?
No, not at all.
Yeah.
Not at all.
Yeah.
Because I mean, it's a bottle of Bacardi costs what, 25 bucks ish, give or take, depending on where you are in the country.
Yeah.
And with bottle service, I'm assuming you guys did all the fanfare around bottle service that a lot of clubs do.
We
But it's
definitely,
also
did bottle service. That
yeah.
happened.
Well, and it looks like from just looking at the menu that's on the website, it looks like it's mostly bottle service.
Yeah.
Is a lot of what was going on, and there's all that fanfare around it, but really, and tell me if I'm wrong on this, I've always had the impression in my head that bottle service at the end of the day is slightly easier than cocktail service. Because yeah, you gotta make sure that you keep the mixers up, yeah, you gotta pour some drinks when you stop by, yeah, you gotta make sure that the bottle, when it runs empty, you get them another one, but it's a lot less running back and forth.
Right.
Is that true? I mean, am I thinking
It's
properly on
it's a
that?
lot less running back and forth as far as because when we're doing bottle service, it's okay, yeah. I mean, it's probably a lot less back and forth than compared to, like, a restaurant or something like that, but I feel like if someone's spending a lot of money, like, whoever the host is, like, that's manning that table, like, they'll probably be running back and forth there to make sure that the guest is having a good time and they're happy and getting everything they
Oh,
want.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, because I'm a now for and thinking about that, you had because the language you use in nightclubs is a little bit different. Host is basically a server, right?
Yeah.
Is that correct? Okay, so you
Well,
have a
there's, like, mainly, like, bottle girls that were,
mhm,
like they would be handling, like, the clients, like, getting them drinks and hosting the table and stuff like that, primarily.
and how many tables would they handle? Just out of curiosity.
I think we had, like, 10 clubs in the table on the cl 10 tables in the clubs, so maybe, like, half and half, so there'd be, like, 2 or 3 hosts, probably something like that.
Okay, so it is the service is a little bit easier because 'cause you're doing bottle service, but also you have a little bit higher kinda servers per table compared to, like, a bar in the middle of nowhere, where you'd have one person on 20 tables because 'cause you're giving that higher level of service, you need that additional attention on the table.
Yeah, and they get paid. I think they get, like, a tip on top of whatever gets spent, right? So if you're
Yeah.
getting 10 to 20% on a table that just ordered, like, 20K worth of bottles, it's not that bad.
No, that's not bad at all.
Yeah.
I mean, waiting, doing some cocktail service or bottle service for the night and then making a couple grand,
Yeah.
that's a really good deal.
Yeah.
I mean, in most of the country, servers are not making a couple grand in a night. I mean, that's pretty unique, I feel like, to nightclubs and really those bigger markets.
Yeah. And One
Uh,
Oak was even bigger, right? So I just can only imagine there, the amount of workers and how much everyone was making, way bigger deal.
yeah, and the to me, the nightclub numbers are just crazy because it's so much action packed in such a small space with so much liability and everything involved. So it's like if we took everything in a normal bar and turned the intensity up to 11.
Yeah.
That's what I feel like a nightclub is. And that's why I always say I don't know them and I'm an idiot about it because I don't know how to turn that up to 11.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, but when it works, you know?
For sure.
Yeah.
And I at the top, because we're getting a little short on time. At the top, you had said, "Hey, if I was gonna do this again, I might do a bar rather
Yeah.
than a nightclub." I know currently you're in pizza, of
Right.
all things, not even booze at all, just pizza. How how is that transition for you? Have you enjoyed moving from nightclub to pizza? Do you think I mean, is it better, do you think? Is it worse? What do you like more? What do you like less?
Well, so the stuff with Dobrik, really, I was trying to open a restaurant next in LA, and so I had originally met with him about potentially investing in a restaurant, and then he was talking about his pizza spot, and we ended up doing a deal with that. But I would say the thing I learned most from doing those like celebrity CPG restaurant type deals is it's a lot easier to talk to like venture capital firms and stuff like that. So I wasn't ever really talking to people like that with Off Sunset. So it opened my eyes, honestly, where now all of a sudden you could talk to these VC people about writing like a $50 million check. Whereas with Off Sunset, you're really only probably raising like 1.5 million or 2 million, right? So it kind of
Hmm.
blew my mind where I'm like, I've been swimming in a small pool. Yeah.
Well,
So that's kind of, I would say, out of that situation and doing that deal, the VC way next if I was going to scale something.
so and because I've not worked with VCs much in hospitality. I'll be real
Right.
honest with you. I
Yeah.
Most of the stuff I do is smaller, more independent based stuff. So when you're looking at the VC, are the VCs more interested in something like pizza just because it's lower liability, it's not alcohol, it's a little bit more predictable?
They don't, from at least from what I've gathered from talking with them, they don't like investing in, like, single brick and mortar type stores. But what does interest them, especially if there's, like, a celebrity attached to it, is, like, so and so is making this popcorn brand, and we can sell it in Walmart or Target, and that's, like, huge reach, right? Especially if it's a big celebrity, so that's mainly, like, what I've realized from it. So I still like having, like, nightclub stuff, and I would do a bar, but definitely, if the right opportunity came, if again in the future, I would do another deal like that maybe with so and so celebrity or so and so artist with so and so product and trying to push that out because I feel like that's like you can just scale it a lot more than a niche speakeasy
Mhm.
nightclub.
So I'm sure some people are listening to this and they're going, "Hey, I didn't know about nightclubs. Now I know a little bit more, and some of this sounds really good. Some of this sounds really not great." And you're saying, "Hey, as a person, I would maybe I would do it again, but I might go a different avenue in the future." If there's someone who wants to get into nightclubs, is there any like single or a couple piece of advice that you think is most important for them to know?
I think, you know, you need to be there, like, every night or pretty close to every night. You need to be very especially if it's your spot, because a lot of those people will keep coming and feel at home if you're there. If they feel like the owner doesn't even care, then why would they care? So I feel like if you do wanna get involved in something like that, be prepared to be, like, super hands-on and be very involved.
That's a good piece of advice, especially because I to me, nightclub owners always do just like the people sitting in back rooms smoking cigars that are never actually in their own clubs, right? And
Yeah.
so that's a totally different thing. And I have a feeling though you're 100% correct. And my view is just from watching bad movies in the 90s.
Yeah.
Uh,
Maybe I was doing it wrong, I don't know.
hey, well, you were successful, so I don't
Yeah.
think you were doing it wrong. But with that said, we're almost out of time today. Is there anything else you would like to add?
Honestly, I feel like I gave it my all. I feel like I shot it straight from the hip, but,
Awesome.
I hope this was somewhat helpful for anyone listening.
Well, I think it should be helpful for a lot of people. And with that said, I'm sure some people are going, "Hey, Connor seems like a cool dude. I want to get in touch with him." So if somebody's listening and they want to reach out to you, what is the best way to get a hold of you?
You can find me on Instagram at the Connor Tracy. You can find me on LinkedIn, and then I have a website, connortracy.com. I would have tried to grab Connor Tracy just that on Instagram, but someone took it for me.
It's rough, you know.
Those
It's
handles, man, those handles.
yeah, and it's not the early days when Gmail was new and you could get whatever handle you wanted and then
Yeah,
just use
yeah,
it
yeah.
everywhere, right?
Oh,
Um,
Instagram, the Connor Tracy.
Perfect. And we'll put all those in the show notes. So if you're listening, you want to get a hold of Connor, just scroll down into the show notes. There'll be links for Instagram, LinkedIn, and his website right there. With that said, Connor, thank you so much for being here and helping us explore a little bit about nightclubs and how that's different and what we need to know about that side of the industry.
Thank you so much, Chris. I appreciate it.
That about wraps it up for today. If you enjoyed today's insights, make sure you like, subscribe, and leave a review. If you are ready to take your bar to the next level, schedule a strategy session with me by clicking the link in the show notes below. Until next time, have a great day, and we will talk again later.